Welcome to Weekly MTG, the only Magic news show coming to you from inside Wizards of the Coast. And today we have two amazing guests from groups outside the company, but they're inside now, working here, doing things for us. But they're here because of what they do outside, which is work on the Commander Rules Committee. Knew I was going to do that.
Yep.
And the Commander Advisory Group. So we've got Sheldon Menery, godfather of Commander here, and we've got Adam Styborski on the Commander Advisory Group. So we're going to talk today about the big announcement that we made yesterday with the Command Zone. Gavin Verhey was on there. A bunch of you have watched it. A bunch of you have read the article. We're going to go through that today, get their reactions, because true story, Stibbs, as we call him, didn't actually know what the announcement was going to be until it happened.
Here.
He works here now. No idea. But first, Steve does the news.
That's right. We have news this week. Lots of news. So much news. Incredible news. But first of all, fractional invites went up today. The information about fractional invites for next year's Players Tour, and you can find that on magic.gg. I'm not going to go over it here because there are a lot of aspects to it that I would not be able to do in the time it usually takes to do the news. But magic.gg, go check it out. And if you have questions, please tweet at Magic Esports. We also have Ponies the Galloping still going on as a special charity product benefiting Extra Life. As it says right there on the slide, in the spirit of love, friendship, and beyond, each purchase of Ponies the Galloping raises funds for Seattle Children's Hospital. And it is available from October 22nd to November 5th, 2019. November 5th is next week. So if you are interested in picking up one of these lovely sets of silver-bordered cards based on My Little Pony in collaboration with the My Little Pony team and Wizards of the Coast, go ahead and do that. They are $50 a piece on HasbroPulse.com. Also benefiting Extra Life, we have our Magic Extra Life charity stream going on Saturday, November 2nd, starting at 4 p.m. Pacific, right after MPL Weekly. Special guests MTG Nerd Girl, the Asian Avenger, and Riot Scarizard coming to play with us here in the building. Going to do some pretty sweet Magic-related things, and maybe some not Magic-related things. I don't know what the schedule is. It's a surprise. It's going to be amazing. People inside the building, people outside the building, doing some crazy things to help benefit Extra Life, a great charity. And speaking of MPL Weekly, let's take a look at that bracket that you're going to be able to see this Saturday. As you'll see, we have a special wild card slot at the very bottom there. This wild card slot is to help determine tiebreakers, not just based on the traditional tiebreaker system. We're actually having all of the folks with tied records to get that last slot actually play. So you'll see there will be a wild card playoff between Andrew Cuneo and Andrea Mengucci to see who gets that final lower semifinals bracket slot. The winner of that match will play Matt Nass in the lower semifinals. The winner of that, of course, will play the loser of the upper finals between Shota Yasuoka and Shahar Shenhar. And then we'll go on to the grand finals. Yes, indeed. So let's go ahead and that's the news. Oh, wait, no, we've got one more thing. Banned and restricted list coming up. Pioneer coming on Monday. We're going to have a B&R for Pioneer. So I know a lot of you like Pioneer. We're going to do that. It's going to be great.
I think, Steve, you may have seen me throw something at our producer. Sean, are we hosting someone right now?
Shouldn't be.
We're checking that real quick.
Are we hosting someone? Can they hear us and not?
I have no idea.
That would be hilarious if they could hear us and it was over. It was over somebody else's.
We're checking on that. While we check on that, a little bit more about today's show. We are going to do a Q&A session with Sheldon and Adam at the end of the show. So make sure you put your questions in chat, and we will get to them. And Sean is going to let me know if we are good to go.
Should be good to go.
Fun show.
Yeah.
Love it. You've never had this issue before, Blake. This has never happened before. And yeah, hey man, we're good.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay. In that case, ignore me. So let's talk about the Commander 2020 announcements yesterday. So Stibbs, you didn't know much about it. Sheldon, did you know going in? Okay. So Adam, let's start with you since it was a surprise to you. What was your reaction? What was your initial reaction?
Wow, there's a lot of cool things coming. Mm-hmm. So I like to have all the cool Commander stuff, and that's something that I'm really big on doing. Like I just try to keep at least one copy of the cool things. So it's a lot of cool things to kind of take in, and I'm trying to like envision just how much more storage I'm going to need after next year. 'Cause it feels like I'm going to double up on like all these awesome legendary creatures I want to build decks for, and getting cool copies of the cards that I need for other decks already.
What about you, Sheldon?
I learned about most of it after I got into the building at the beginning of October, and I was excited then. But I got to tell you, yesterday, about 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was chatting online with my wife. She's like, "How's your day going?" And I said, "Well, there was some big kind of commander announcements today, and it's a bunch of stuff you don't care about, but my pulse is still pounding, not from the announcement, but from everybody's reaction to the announcement.
Right.
I was paying attention to the social media scape, and everybody was just jazzed, and I could still feel that I was excited about their excitement."
Yeah. So let's walk through exactly what we announced yesterday. So we announced everything we're doing in 2020.
For Commander.
For Commander.
For Commander.
For Commander.
For Commander.
And it was big because in past years we've done a focused Commander set every year, and then the other sets we release always have some little goodies here and there for Commander. But it's the year of Commander essentially next year. So we announced 4 things. So we announced the Ikoria.
Good job.
Thank you.
Pronounced correctly.
It is pronounced Ikoria Commander product. So this is 5 decks. This is essentially what you've come to know and love as the Commander release every year, and it is going to be themed after Ikoria. Now the reprints can come from anywhere, but all the new cards are going to be themed after Ikoria. There will be 5 decks. Otherwise, it'll be pretty close to the Commander products that you are used to. The next one that we announced is Commander Collection Green. So this is kind of a from the vault signature spellbook-ish kind of deal that'll have, I believe it's 8 green cards.
What, green cards?
Green cards.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I never would have guessed that.
And there'll be special green cards that are among the most heavily played in the format, all with new art. In fact, speaking of art, we showed off some of that art. We didn't say what the cards were, but we did show off some art for people to take some guesses. I've seen a lot of people making guesses about this one. I don't remember what this one is, so I'm guessing right along with you, even though I picked out this art for the announcement.
Blake has a very short memory.
I have a short memory, yeah. So yeah, take your guesses. The internet has a lot of guesses that I'm sure people can find. So let me unpack this a little bit, because the existence of Commander Collection Green implies that there's probably maybe some other colors in the future. Maybe, I don't know. What do you guys think about this product?
Good.
I play green in a lot of Commander decks.
Yeah.
So I
Me
think
too.
I think it's better than
Me too.
yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so like I'm excited
What
to
are
find
the
out
chances?
what's in it, because I probably need some copies of those cards, and I want to get them into some decks. And I like cool new cards with shiny art. Like it's cool.
Sheldon, what would you say? I know you have more decks than I care to count, but what would you say your most played color is?
Green.
Green.
Green, probably green and black together.
Okay.
Like are really close to each other. But yeah, green. I mean, green is the flexible color in Magic, and there are a lot of tools in your green toolbox, so it makes sense.
Yeah. Ends up.
And of course, I like to turn creatures sideways. So
Well, who doesn't?
green is a good color for that. People like Blake who hate fun.
I'll have you know that most of my Commander decks are green.
Except for the ones
green,
that
blue
play ball
specifically. Yeah.
My answer still stands.
That's fair. The third product we announced is the Zendikar Rising Commander decks. So these are going to be, as Gavin said on the announcement, there shouldn't just be one good time to start Commander during the year when the Commander decks come out. It should be a good time to start all the time. And so this is another on-ramp for particularly newer players looking to get into Commander. Zendikar Rising, there will be 2 decks, and they will have new cards, but fewer new cards than the Ikoria decks. Thank you. still have a bunch of reprints, a bunch of staples that you need to get into it. And then finally, Commander Legends.
This is the thing that I think most people
yeah.
like really,
it's also
really
the
excited.
furthest away, which was the biggest tease.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
we did that.
It's Blake's fault.
It's kind of. The thing is, we wanted to give context for the full year.
Sure.
This was, it was a big announcement, and just talking about the Ikoria decks leaves a lot of questions. Well, what about characters I love that aren't themed after Ikoria? I want to see new versions of old legends, like this art that we also showed off.
And that Gavin confirmed, so it's okay for us to say
Yeah.
it. This is Baron Singer.
This is Baron Singer.
Yeah.
So what does that mean to you guys in the Commander community to be able to revisit, first of all, these old legends?
I mean, at least for me, like I've had 20 years of like on and off Magic, awesome, and so when I see like old kind of Planeswalkers come back or other characters come back, like it reminds me of some of the stuff. Like I remember Baron Sengir being a big giant card that my buddy could like beat me over the head with, like when I learned Magic. So like now maybe I can do it to him. That'd be fun.
Yeah, I mean, we have professional card designers and developers now, and we didn't really back then because we were just sort of making it up as we went along.
Yeah.
And getting a play design team to really sharpen and hone these new cards is great because you get the nostalgia that Stib was talking about. Because I'm like, man, Baron Sengir seems like it'd be a cool card.
It's so cool, and it's just not that good, the original.
It's less good.
It is less good than other 8 mana options, yeah.
Creatures in the 21st century are decidedly better.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, even creatures around that time were better. Baron took a backseat to Autumn Willow during that time, but that's a different story.
Yeah.
So those are the 4 things that we announced. It's going to be a big year.
There was a good thing there.
There was a 5th thing?
I thought there were decks that were going along with Commander Legends too.
Oh, yes, there will be. Yeah. It's all kind of one thing.
But
yes,
Commander Legends
Commander
is a
Legends
whole-
will also
yeah.
have
Okay.
the pre-constructed decks that will go along with it. Yep,
Thank you for
absolutely.
keeping us honest, Sheldon.
Yeah.
That's why we like you on this show.
He works here now. He knows these things.
Honesty's my brand.
Yeah, exactly.
We are going to continue to talk about these products and stuff, but I also want to talk. We've got a member of the Rules Committee. We've got a member of the Commander Advisory Group here. So we want to talk about broad Commander strokes. We want to talk about rules, including the rule that shall not be named.
Because we would have to put a dollar in a jar.
We'll get to that in a moment. We also want to take your questions, though. So put any Commander question you can think of in chat. This is your chance to ask Sheldon or Stibbs what their thoughts are. And they can kind of reflect on what the other parts of their groups might think as well.
Right.
But all opinions are their own. So let's start by talking about, I've talked about the 2 groups. What is the difference between the Commander Advisory Group and the Rules Committee with regards to managing Commander?
You want to start?
Sure. So in kind of, I think, my words, the Commander Advisory Group is the group of people that everyone thinks makes the Commander rules and gets yelled at. So, but more straightforwardly, it really is an advisory body, and it functions exactly like an advisory body does. We hear feedback. I want to hear feedback. I've gotten lots of cool feedback hearing from players and friends, and mostly things that they want to change or don't change, and all of these things kind of give us the ability to take some of these things and think about them, distill what we hear, and bring a broader range and a broader depth of feedback to the Rules Committee than the Rules Committee would get by themselves. And it's just really this pass-through conduit where we can, argue fervently over the things we're really passionate about, but also, provide really even-handed, you're worried about this on the Rules Committee, but honestly, that's not what the community's worried about. They're worried about this other thing, and it really helps bring some additional dimension to the things that the Rules Committee is going to discuss.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Stib said, so the advisory group advises, and the RC makes the rules. The 4 of us are the ones that will take their advice, and there are 6 very smart people who know a lot about Magic, and then we'll take what they had to say and then we'll go through our decision-making process, which is the decision-making process is exactly the same as it was before the CAG, but now we just have piles more data. And, I started conceiving the CAG late last year because I knew for a long time one of the criticisms of the RC was that we were sort of ivory tower kind of people.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, we... with the changes to organized play, especially at the professional level, Toby and Scott weren't getting to as many events, so they weren't interfacing with the community as much. I had a few challenges of my own. Certainly hadn't traveled to an event since like 2015, and we weren't getting the kind of data that we wanted to get.
Yeah.
We weren't getting the kind of impressions that we wanted to get. So it was like, well, who's going to be best to do that? And we talked about it internally and said, well, let's get people who hear a lot of voices. So you'll see that the first 6 members of the CAG, and there's a hard limit on the number because any advisory group will get too unwieldy.
That's why our show only has 4 people.
That's true. Yeah.
But the 6 members of the CAG are people with really broad social media profiles. People that either a bunch of people watch or a bunch of people listen to. So we get, and distill is the perfect word, right? We get the sort of distilled voices, and the CAG. I don't mind saying, demographically, the RC is a little limited. We're all 40 plus. Actually, 3 of us are 50 plus. And
you don't get to be the godfather of anything by being like the young whippersnapper involved.
You can be 40 plus and 50 plus. The groups overlap, man. It's like you can still say 40 plus.
And it was, we really wanted this very diverse group of very diverse voices, both socially diverse and magic diverse, right? We have, like Shivam is like the king of all casuals, and nobody's going to confuse Rachel for a casual player.
Nope.
So
yeah, that's true.
so we have this broad swath of voices from different people with differing opinions, but all are giant Commander fans and understand and agree with the format's vision.
Yeah. Cool. Now, as we alluded to earlier, both of you work here currently. You're both Sheldon. I think you're here for a limited time.
Yeah, it was a 2-month contract.
2-month contract. Okay, yeah. What are you working on?
I'm working on Commander product.
I'm shocked.
What?
I'm actually working on Brawl product too.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
Stibbs, what are you doing here?
I work on the magic.gg website. So all the event content, the articles, things like that go through, as well as working with the team to help make the website better. So if you're looking for someone else to yell at about things on the website, I'm a good place to start.
That website. You can still yell at me about the other website.
You can yell at Blake for Magic.
You can yell at me for whatever you want.
Like
it happens.
Yeah.
So this is a question from chat that is apropos here. What's the coolest thing you've seen at Wizards of the Coast headquarters that you can talk about?
yeah.
You can say this show. That's okay. You could totally say that.
Well, after the first week was here, I wrote an article about my top 10 impressions from my first week, and the coolest thing for me is the work environment, the mood, the zeitgeist of Studio X is insane. It's certainly not the first time I've been in the building. Certainly not the first time I've been on the 3rd floor. But when you're sort of on the fringes, on the periphery of something, you don't get the feeling of it. Getting into like getting a desk and getting work, and then feeling all of it happen around you. It's amazing. There's this quiet, but at the same time this tension of creative energy that's happening. But my favorite thing, my absolute favorite thing, is the meerkat effect, because it's a cube farm.
Yeah.
And you'll turn to somebody and start having a philosophical conversation, about magic mechanics or whatever. Head will pop up over the cube, throw something in,
Yeah.
and it'll start, and head will pop back down, and maybe 5 minutes later in the conversation, another head will pop up, and then of course there are the grenades that are always lobbed over.
Here's why you can't do that. It's usually one of the rules people, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Or somebody with
Not gonna point fingers
somebody
and
with a
name names.
templating background is like,
in my little section of 4 people, there's Ethan Fleischer, but then Eli Schifrin and Mark Gottlieb are at my back.
Yeah.
So
here's why you can't do that.
I can't do that.
Let's get back to talking about the Rules Committee, Commander Advisory Group. You guys are both generally agreeable gentlemen, but can you talk about, so as you said, the Rules Committee actually makes the rules, takes the information, and does that. Where's an area where you guys disagree on something?
So I'll just go ahead and jump on this grenade.
Yeah.
The one part that I'm very articulate about, and I'm public about it too, is I believe in a smaller ban list for Commander. Not because it necessarily introduces healthy cards to the format, because oh boy, is Recurring Nightmare do some good work. But that there are already so many cards that let you do incredibly powerful things, amazingly powerful things. Competitive Commander is a thing, and I've seen the things that those decks can do. You really can't tune them up too much more, other than give them more things to do with the 2-3 turn engines they have. But having a longer ban list is something that makes it difficult to know if cards are banned or not. And one of the examples I'll go to is actually great with you, Steve. Is we're playing Commander, and all of a sudden Worldfire drops out because the whole deck is a riff off of Smash Mouth's All Star, which is an amazing theme and spot on for Steve. But I had to go, Worldfire's banned, Steve.
And like, oh great, I'll just put that away and I'll draw another card and we'll continue the game.
Yeah,
so it's fine, but
it didn't end the game. But it is one of those things where it's like, oh, I wouldn't have thought that. And so the difficulty isn't that you can't have cards on the ban list, and I certainly will argue, let's ban some cards, but the mind space and the difficulty of navigating an only increasing ban list becomes cumbersome in and of itself. And so I would love to just rip some of these band-aids off, or duct tape, or super glue, whatever analogy Sheldon would want to use. But that's kind of where I stand, and that is not shared among the Rules Committee.
Yeah, well, but at the same time, we also believe in a small, agile ban list. Because 100-card ban lists, which you could probably easily get into. And one of the reasons we don't do what I call our cascading bans, if this then that, because if you let that roll, there will be 75 or 100 cards.
Yeah.
Well, why is this banned if that's banned or not? Or why is this unbanned if that's banned? And well, we don't compare cards to each other unless they're functionally identical. Really, I mean, if there was a white 6 wildfire variant, we ban that too.
Yeah.
But we believe in a agile ban list because it's better for the players, right? I don't ever want there to be a situation where somebody has to pull out a piece of paper to remember what's on the ban list. It's just, and messaging is really difficult. So we're of a similar mind. We're just now where I think we're just talking incrementalism.
So Stibbs, I'm going to put you to it here.
Yeah.
What are some cards you'd take off the ban list?
Recurring Nightmare.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a good start.
Your lips to God's ears, my friend.
Training some other cards on the list. I proposed Sundering Titan, not because again I would enjoy getting Blake Sundering Titan me with a Blink deck, because that sounds like a very Blake thing to do.
it would definitely happen.
Yeah.
It would,
too.
it would be in that
but
deck.
100% to happen.
Currently, it would go in Yarick, probably, but yeah,
Right.
go on.
Again,
Right.
100% to happen. Like,
Yeah, but for 7 mana, like I could literally already rip away everybody else's lands with like much lower level of effort.
Sylvan Primordial. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I have Silver Primordial in the deck, and I remember, getting to Rite of Replication kicked it.
Yeah.
And that was a very disappointing end to the game for everyone else.
Right.
And so it didn't surprise me it was banned. But, I've also been on the business end of, I think Keldon Firebombers is kind of my favorite example, where it just nukes everybody except for 3 lands. and it's very, very similar effect, but it's less expensive. And it's just, I don't think that there's any, particularly healthy, again, there's no healthy cards on the ban list.
There are no healthy cards.
There are no healthy cards, but in a comparative state, if I see similar effects or I feel things are like, I've got easier ways of already doing this very unfair, unfun, really thing, I don't want to take the mind space to knock it out.
That's a reasonable point. From the beginning of the format, one of the things about the ban list, unlike ban lists in any other format, was that we wanted these cards to also serve as exemplars of other cards that you might really want to think about not playing. And the smaller the Commander community, the easier that messaging was.
Yeah.
Now that we are immense, there are just a significant number of people who are like, nope, I don't care that you want them to be exemplars.
Yeah.
They're not on the list. I'm playing them.
So let's explore that, because we've got Commander Fests coming up this weekend. We've got one in Seattle, one in Chicago, and then next month there's one in DC. If these are successful, I can imagine them continuing. We've got Command Zone at Magic Fest. So there are a lot of people playing a lot of Commander against people that they don't know, that aren't in their Commander groups. So does that change your philosophy at all? Does it have you guys thinking or talking in any of those directions?
There's a yes and a no there.
Okay.
It doesn't change our philosophy, but certainly it's got us talking.
Yeah.
Because it would be hopelessly naive to not talk about it. Rule 0 in today's Commander is way more important than it's ever been.
Yeah.
Talking about the game that you would like to play with the people that you're going to play with. It's easy for local groups. Gets a little harder I think Gavin Duggan was the one that came up with the term untrusted settings. But I think what Channel Fireball figured out for the Las Vegas Magic Fest was put up some signs.
Yeah.
Here's if you want to play competitive, there's your spot. You want to play casual, here's your spot. Now there are obviously
It's a spectrum.
gradations
Yep.
of because I know that there are people who play highly optimized decks, but they think if they're drinking beer, it's casual.
Right.
Right. So just talking about the experience you want to have is the most important.
Yeah.
Again, it's a philosophy, and Commander's the only format that actually has a philosophy, and it governs how we think about managing the format.
That makes sense. There's a bunch of people in chat who want you to unban Paradox Engine. How do you feel about that? Our producer Sean wants it unbanned. I'll have to say I was getting decks ready for this weekend. I was just going through. I was like, oh, Paradox Engine's still in this deck. Oh, Paradox Engine's still in this deck.
And everybody was so surprised that Blake had a Paradox Engine in a bunch of decks.
It was in 2 decks, both broken creature decks. But go on. Yeah.
You seem to have answered the question for me.
All right.
Yeah, and to kind of put a lid on things, like I was very, very excited when Kaladesh came out, and I got a masterpiece Paradox Engine, and I've had it forever, and I had to very sorrowfully move it from my Commander box to my binder of things that I'm just holding on to because they're pretty and nice, and I love them.
Let me tell you about the stack of foil Primeval Titans that I have. Because one thing that we make sure we don't do is in any fashion signal a move that we're going to make.
Yeah.
And if that means it, and if that means it's bad for me, then that's okay. But I wouldn't want to.
So I shouldn't ask you what's next on your chopping block.
Stibbs, I have a question for you, actually. I know that you mentioned earlier in the show that you get a lot of feedback, and it's understandable being on both of you, I'm sure, get a lot of feedback. How many times have you gotten a piece of feedback, and then in that same feedback loop with another person, gotten exactly the opposite feedback?
I mean, like I think the Paradox in Japan is a great example of that. Like,
Yeah.
I heard from people who were really disappointed and like, hey, I'd love to play with this card and it does really cool stuff in this deck and I like it. And I mean, I think there's a fan of every Magic card, and if you don't think there is, you clearly have not met enough Magic fans.
Right.
There's a card for everyone.
Including like weird vanilla creatures that that apparently
Pearl Unicorn, and everybody has a home. Everybody has a friend. But I also heard from a lot of people who are like, thank you. Like, it's, I'm tired of seeing that card, or like, I don't want to play against that anymore. It's just, I've seen it all the time. I want to see something different. And again, every play group's a little bit different. And when you travel to events, you get a little more variety. And I honestly hadn't seen a lot of Paradox Engine, but I heard from a lot of people who had. Mm-hmm. And it kind of, again, that's kind of why, the Commander Advisory Group exists, is because I heard from a lot of people who had seen that card, and it's kind of ubiquitously in a lot of decks, and it was kind of at a point where it was problematic for a lot of other people.
One of the things we really trust about the folks that are on the CAG is that we understand their personal styles, and we also understand that they're going to give us the honest feedback of what they're hearing in the community. And I mean, I think you have to have that kind of relationship. You have to have the inherent trust of each other, that you're operating in the best interest of Magic, not just, Stibbs isn't on the CAG just for Stibbs. He's on it for all the people who are going to talk to him about the format. I mean, I'll say that it was maybe 2 weeks before Gen Con that the ban came out, and I understand my sampling is colored by the fact that not a lot of people are going to walk up to you in an event and tell you that they didn't like what you did.
Yeah.
They'll save that for online. But thank you for banning Paradox Engine XO Gen Con for me.
Okay.
And there were several dozen people that just walked up while I was playing a game or something and said it. So.
Fair enough. For anybody missing Paradox Engine, there's a format called Canadian Highlander where it's perfectly legal. It's not pointed. You can play it.
It's got points, right?
No.
Really?
No.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's played in Canadian Highlander in like artifact combo-y decks, but it's not broken. It's a 5-mana artifact in a format where mana drain's legal, like and Ancestral Recall and stuff like that.
Blake really likes Canadian Highlander.
Really like Canadian
He
Highlander.
loves
it. I'm going to be playing it
He
next.
would love it if you put together a Canadian Highlander deck and came up to him at an event and said, hey, I want to challenge you to Canadian Highlander.
I'll bring 1 or 2 to CommandFest. But I'm there to play Commander. But anyway, we're not going to talk about that.
Just saying.
What we are going to do is we are going to move on to questions from chat, because I've accumulated quite the list here, and I want to make sure we get to a bunch. I have other questions that I wrote down, but this is for you. We do this for the fans. So let's talk.
Oh, also happy Halloween, chat.
Also happy Halloween. We didn't dress up.
Right. I thought last week was Halloween show.
No, you didn't.
Last week was Halloween show.
That was not. He dressed up like a pioneer for the Pioneer announcement. It was delightful. I've gotten this question in a couple different ways. I'm going to ask 2 versions of it. But let's just start with the broader question. There's been some conversation about green being too good. We talked a little bit about that with the Commander Collection green, how many of your decks, how many cards, how many staples are green, and then white not being good enough. First of all, do you guys agree?
I think I like white a little better than most folks, but for the most part, yes, I agree.
Okay.
White could use quite some help.
I mean, one of my long-standing decks is Reese the Redeemed, and I've never had an issue playing white in Commander.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite decks is Carador, and the white parts of that are pretty significant to the deck.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. And then the question as it was written was, are you in position to fix it or do anything about it? And you're not. You work on the esports team. I mean, you can whisper in people's ears, but you're not actually designing cards.
No.
Are you in a position to do something?
100%.
Okay. So maybe. We'll see. We'll see.
100%.
Now, along those lines, what's your favorite white card? And this was a question for all of us, so we'll all go down the line.
So I got an easy
like,
one.
hold on. Includes white or like only white?
If you answer includes white, you also have to give a mono white answer.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. So my favorite white card is an old, I believe, Urza's Legacy staple, Martyr's Cause. So it's a 3-mana enchantment, and you can sacrifice a creature to prevent damage to a creature or creeper player of damage from a source of your choice. Note the wording. To a creature or player, and basically, yeah.
I told you we could pull up any card.
So
told you.
This goes into I learned about it in my Reese the Redeem deck a decade ago.
Yeah.
And because basically now you deal damage to my army, I sacrifice half to save the other half.
Yep.
Yeah.
I have an infinite way of soaking damage. I just sacrifice 3 1/1s, and like your 10/10 doesn't matter if it has infect, doesn't matter if it tramples.
Right.
Wow, that should have been in my taste of deck.
I
That's-
just ignore it,
Uh,
and it's a really kind of strong way to just play an aggro strategy. You don't care about the crackback until they disenchant it, but you don't care about the crackback as long as you have an army.
It's also untargeted, so nuts to you, Earl the Miststalker.
Yep.
That's a good pick. That's really
All right,
cool.
yeah, solid choice, Sheldon.
Comeuppance.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan, obviously, sort of I think my most well-known deck is You Did This to Yourself.
Yeah.
And your uppance will come.
I remember,
You were there.
I was there. It was that. This is a deck I have not been afflicted with in quite a while. It is a gem.
We were at
And there it is.
we were at Gen Con, and there was a 5-player game. It was Eric Klug, Stibbs, BDM, maybe Dave Williams. I'm blanking on who the 5th was. Was it DW?
Is it
So
Dave or
anyway,
Bob?
it was either Dave or Bob, and we were playing the Star format. And Klug was one of my allies, and he was playing a Heartless Hitetsugu. And I'm like, you're not, we're allies. You're not going to activate that thing. It's like, guess you'll find out. And he activated it. It was like, Eric, you did this to yourself.
Your uppance has come.
Well, I played Reflect Damage.
Oh man, Steve, what about you?
It's not a commander staple, but it is my favorite white card. Soul Warden.
Okay.
Soul Warden is my favorite white card. I am one of the few people I know left that still plays mono white Soul Sisters in Modern. So I love me some Soul Warden action. If I have to pick like one that I really like in Commander that's mono white, it's hard to go wrong with a card like Teferi's Protection.
Yeah.
Very hard to go wrong. That card is gross.
Yeah.
Do you ever do it just to like say, all right, I'm gonna go get pizza. I'll be back.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it's me. Of course I do.
Nothing's
stuff like
happening
that.
right now, but I'm just gonna do this.
Yeah, I'll be back. It's like,
does Kildren Outpost count?
Yeah.
Well,
It's not technically white, but you can't put it in a.
It's a white card.
it has a white color identity.
Yes, it does.
So for our purposes, sure.
Okay. My favorite card with white in it is Rubinia Soul Singer, which was the commander for my first.
I remember
my
that.
first. Yeah, oh yeah. I've still got the deck, but it moved in such an enchantress way that I've switched commanders. So if neither of those count, then it's probably going to be something like Hollowed Burial because I'm that guy.
yeah, you are.
Oh, you know what it is? No, it's Catastrophe.
Because it's so flexible.
Because
my
it's so
God.
flexible. You have the option to wreck everybody's creatures or to wreck everyone's lands. Like, it's just great. Yeah. The art is also fantastic. It's got the old border, which I like. I really like Catastrophe. It bounces in and out of decks because I feel bad using the Destroy All Lands mode. But sometimes you just got to do it. Anyway, I really enjoy that. Someone else in chat mentioned Cataclysm, and yes, that is absolutely a favorite, except everyone hates you after that, so it has not stayed in any of my decks. It was Cataclysm when I had a Narset, like a Narset, I don't care if you hate me kind of deck with all the time walks and everything. That had Cataclysm in it, and that would,
Prompt a concession from
Yes,
everybody around the table.
It would prompt a concession. Okay, let's move on to some of the other questions. One of the questions we got earlier was, Commander obviously encompasses the entire history of the game. Has there ever been any discussion of any kind of modern or pioneer-ish analog for Commander that is a smaller card pool?
Back when Modern was first announced, I built a Modern-only Aurelia deck. But there hasn't been any real serious thought about it because one of the big draws to the format is playing a bunch of those old cards. Some of them extremely strong, some of them extremely janky, that people want to play.
Yeah.
Oh, I can play my, and there have been a bunch of times when, especially in the earlier days, when somebody we knew from the Pro Tour or whatever when he was like, "What are you guys playing?" It's like, "Oh, we have an extra deck. Sit down," and they'd shuffle up and they draw their hand. I'm like, "You can play that?"
Yeah.
Like, "Oh, you can play." Well, that was my favorite card in Standard in 2002.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to take that away. I certainly fully support people getting together and doing it that way. I would play Modern Forward or a Pioneer Commander. Why not?
Yeah. So, I like that because I'm like you, have been playing for a very long time. In fact, one of my new decks for this weekend is a Rasputin Dreamweaver deck whose theme is just old bordered cards.
Right.
It's literally white and blue cards from back in the day, some of them very strong, some of them not. It was an excuse to play with Keldrin Outpost and the Browse Digger, Soldivi Digger combo. Okay, next question, and this is, it kind of goes along with that last one because someone brought up Brawl as well. So we know what Wizards thinks Brawl is in the broader spectrum of thing, that it is a place for people who have smaller standard collections to play. They may only have one of these cool rares rather than a full set, and it gives them a place to play. But it also has a space in the larger Commander community. So before you guys got in the building, where did you see Brawl's place in the spectrum of Commander play?
Good.
Yeah, when Brawl came out, I built a Brawl deck. It was a Hapatra.
Nice.
Zia Poisons, I think.
Yeah.
Trying to remember her name.
Poisons,
Yeah, and it was awesome because there was this card in the Liliana Planeswalker deck that gave all of your opponent's creatures a -1/-1 counter, which with Hapatra meant I got a Death Touch Snake for every single creature somebody else had. It turns out it was a pretty nice little 1/2 in the deck, and it was a lot of fun, but I wouldn't say it was the most powerful Brawl deck then. And kind of, I didn't have as much chance to play any Magic really for a little while, kind of after that. But when the Courtside Brawl hit for Arena, that was a really super fun event. Like I remember, I complained to Blake because I complained to Blake about it a lot, and
We all complained to Blake about a lot.
I lost. It took a while, but I lost a lot more games. But I won a lot of the rewards from that event, and that was a lot of fun. I'm excited to see kind of how Brawl continues to evolve. With a little, with more support and kind of off the shelf decks. So
Yeah.
I don't have to kind of scramble and try to figure out how to put together a standard deck when I don't play standard as much as kind of some of my friends do. I want to see some of that stuff, and I don't have a Brawl deck together because I specifically want to borrow other people's Brawl's decks this weekend. If there's a Brawl game, I want to see what other people are doing so I can kind of get a sense on how that's going for them.
Yeah,
For the record, I've never complained to Blake.
it's true.
Just want to put that out there.
He hasn't. Never once that I can remember. We used to do GP coverage together, so who knows what happened back then? But yeah,
I might have complained about Blake.
that's yeah.
To me, and again, like I mentioned, I'm working on a Brawl product right now. Brawl is a place where people can play Planeswalkers as their commanders. That's my favorite thing about it.
Okay, that makes sense. That's this most recent question. Has there been any thought given to changing the infect number for victory condition? If you don't know, life totals in Commander start at 40, which is twice the normal total. Infect is you get to 10 and you lose, which is the same as normal. So has that been discussed at all?
Did that come up in the first meeting? In the first with the CAG?
I think very quickly, but we all kind of moved on.
So what was really interesting about the first joint CAG RC meeting was it was like, okay, there are 10 of us.
Yeah.
You can't get 10 people to agree on the same restaurant, right? So I went in thinking, okay, there are going to be some disagreements. Let's figure out, ways to manage where we disagree. And on issues, we had a list of issues that we wanted to make sure that we sort of had our fingers on the pulse on, and and every issue 10 and owed. And that was one of them. And there's never been a real serious thought about changing the effect, mostly because it just doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like it's changing it from 10 to 15. It really would change very, very little.
Okay.
So moving away from the way Magic is played, if it's important, I mean, the way other Magic is played is important. But if it doesn't bring you that much, then stay closer to the source material.
Sure, makes sense. Next question: have either of you in the past played a Commander Cube or a Commander Draft format before?
I've cubed once or twice.
Okay.
I don't think I've drafted.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never had a.
I mean, not cube drafted. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I've never played a Commander Cube, unfortunately. Like
Okay.
that's part of why I'm so excited for Commander Legends. Like that is kind of the thing that I've seen other people put together, and I know that there's interest in that, and that's really cool. And now I have a chance to like get something off the shelf. I already maintain one cube, and that I used to. I should say, actually, that is true. I used to maintain a cube. Now I follow those people that fix it, I guess. But I'd love to like draft like a Commander set. Like this sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I have not drafted Commander Cube. I have seen a Commander Cube.
I've seen them before
seen
as
them,
well.
yeah.
You usually do one round where you draft a commander or three. Like you get a pack that is literally just
Commander.
Legends,
commanders, and then you go through it and you get 3 or something like that, and then you draft a cube semi-normally, and
with
obviously
a higher pool of cards. But it's
there are various ways to do it. I honestly don't know how Commander Legends works. I'm going to be very interested to see how that draft format works.
I will say the one thing that I've had opportunities to draft Commander. I love Cube, by the way. I've had opportunities to draft Commander Cube, but the thing that always made it so that I couldn't was the amount of time that it takes to draft a Commander Cube. It takes a lot of time. More so even than like a regular cube with all the shuffling, because you're drafting a 100 card deck.
Yeah.
And it takes time.
It's a Saturday, playing Commander on just by itself can be an undertaking.
Yeah.
It can take 20 minutes. It can take 4 hours. Yeah. It depends on what everybody's doing and where you're at.
It's a cool concept, though.
And sometimes people are just hanging out and having fun. But
cool concept.
You got a draft component to it. It's gonna take a little bit longer. So I think it happens less often. But I remember actually at Magic Fest Vegas that in the command zone there was somebody walking around trying to grab people for a commander draft. So they do exist. I guarantee someone will bring one to CommandFest this weekend, and if you may get the opportunity to draft one.
If you're going to CommandFest Chicago or Seattle, ask around.
Next up, let's see. Going down my list of questions. So this is I'll answer this one because this is about Commander Legends. And that's not a product you worked on, right?
No.
Okay. I don't remember. I know we dragged some people in to give it a little try every once in a while. I wasn't sure if you were one of those or not. So we announced that there would be.
Oh, wait a minute. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna say. I thought you
Yes,
had.
as a matter of fact. I think you and I sat next to each other even.
I haven't tried it, so I
Okay.
wasn't it. Yeah, but anyway. I'll answer the question. So we did announce there'd be upwards of 70 new legendary creatures in this product, and the question was, will they be redone old legends like Baron Sengir and the other one that we did not name but showed the art for, or will they be new? And the answer is it's going to be a mix.
Yeah,
it's going to be a mix. It's not one thing. So check that one off. Then. This was an interesting question. Let me make sure that I get this right, because it was a very interesting question that I clearly took poor notes on. Here we go. Is homogenization of the format a factor you are looking at when you make bans? For instance, Sol Ring. They use the example of Sol Ring and Command Tower being in every deck, but I actually very distinctly remember a couple bans that were along these lines. So go ahead and speak towards that.
It's not just ubiquity of a card. It's problematic ubiquity of a card. And Command Tower, nobody can argue, is problematic.
Yeah.
Solemn Simulacrum, nobody can argue, is problematic.
Yeah.
They're just, they don't sort of break the format. Obviously, there are some people with some very, very strong opinions about Sol Ring. We don't believe that it breaks the format, because if we did, we would have said already, let's ban that.
And not make it the mascot.
And
for the
not make
format.
it the mascot for the format.
Yeah.
But it's, for a decade and a half, it's been that one card where people are like, I can play my Soul Ring?
Yeah.
I'm in. It gets them the first step.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they don't realize that the second step is actually way down the cliff. But yeah, so it's. I think we used to call it problematic omnipresence.
Yeah.
So if it's everywhere, if you feel like you can't play the format without it, then it becomes the kind of thing that will take it out.
Yeah, and I remember, and I can't remember if it was Silver Primordial or Primeval Titan, but that was kind of the reasoning there was not only did it become omnipresent, but once it hit the table, everything became about copying it or taking control of it or cloning it or just making more of it, and that was the issue.
It was a Primeval Titan arms race, basically.
It became, the games became devolutionary
Yeah.
at that point. That's why Kakusho had gotten banned in the first place way back when. Mm-hmm. Then obviously we realized that at a certain point, well, Kakusho's going to hit the table and it's not going to have that effect.
Yeah.
And when we unbanned it, it didn't, because creatures were a lot better a decade later.
Yeah.
But yeah, Primeval Titan, to some extent, Silver Primordial as well.
Mm-hmm.
They're just, as soon as they hit the table, the game becomes all about them.
Yeah.
Prophet Kruvik's definitely the same answer.
Yeah. Oh, I miss Prophet of Krufix.
Of course you
It
do.
was the right band, but man, I miss that card.
And so
my cube.
something about ubiquitous cards, though. And so here's the secret. If you want to know a secret, listen up. Just because a card is used a lot doesn't mean you should actually use it a lot.
Mm.
Yeah.
Not every deck actually wants Soul Ring. That sounds
Accurate.
weird. Not a lot of decks actually need Command Tower. Two-color decks, monocolor decks, that's really not doing a lot for you.
I did put a Command Tower in my mono blue deck to mess with Blake once.
Yep, you did.
Yeah, it was great.
I don't have one in my.
And then you were at
deck.
one and he killed you with Anathemancer.
Oh yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah, and as good as Solemn Simulacrum is, like it doesn't actually fit perfectly as an optimal card in every single commander deck. So something to keep in mind is some of the homogenization. Take a step back and think about your deck holistically and go, do I actually, what does this do for me on turn 5, on turn 10? Because Soul Ring, you're going to draw it on turn 10, and boy, sometimes you would really like something else, like something that fetches a land instead. And that subtle difference in a similar effect, but different way of doing it, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I would actually advise seeing what the most commonly played cards are, and then play something else.
And that's it. My first draft of a lot of my decks is 150, 200 cards or something unwieldy like that. And a lot of the time it's fun just to cut the things that you're already playing with in other decks. Solemn doesn't make a lot of my decks these days because it goes in my artifact decks, in my decks that care about when things come into play and that care about when things leave play. It's not going to make the cut in my dragon deck, even though it's 5 color. I don't think that deck has any basic lands.
Okay, so everybody play Blood Moon
you
and
with
Blake's
Anathemancer.
Dragon deck.
So,
Yeah,
yes.
or Anathemancer.
Don't ghost quarter me. Okay. That was a great question. Here is another great question, maybe the greatest question ever. Candy corn, best or worst Halloween candy?
Oh, wow.
Best, don't argue.
Gotta
fine.
listen to my
Okay.
advisors.
Stibbs, I'm gonna ask you this next question, because I know you have a different opinion than Sheldon here. If cards like Soul Ring don't break the format, which we've said they don't, and cards like Time Twister and Mishra's Workshop are legal, is there really a good reason that the Moxen are banned? Because I think before the show you were saying you would actually unban them.
Yeah, I use that as kind of like the most aggressive example of a card I would unban, just because I think Mana Crypt is just actually stronger than some of those cards in a lot of decks. So I can't speak to the specifics of what keeps some of those cards there because I don't make that decision. But what I do know is that I've never had the opportunity to trade for one of those cards. And so I think if I was trying to find them for one of my decks, I would struggle to find one for the deck that might want it. But I would love to see a much smaller ban list.
Yeah.
There was a ban list criterion that we basically got rid of called perceived barrier to entry.
Sure.
And in the beginning days of the format, we wanted to make sure that people understood. Remember, I was talking earlier about how cards were banned as exemplars. We wanted to make sure that people understood this was not alt vintage.
Yeah.
So power was one of the first things that just
Library of Alexandria.
it was on the
which
chopping
you can
block.
play in Canadian Highland.
And then once a card's on the banned list,
yeah.
you might think this is unfair to those cards, but once the card's on the ban list, it bears a heavier burden of proof of getting off than it would have if it were legal and maybe going on. Perceived barrier to entry still, tickles at the back of our minds. There's no, at this point, there's really no good reason
Yeah.
to unban those cards. I
Yeah.
mean, so few people have them, and
They don't add fun to the
yeah,
format.
right.
Yeah.
They're gonna
Unless you're Blake.
they would
I don't even know that I'd play them.
yeah they would certainly want to tilt people in a certain direction,
Right.
And we're happier when the format is a few turns longer, not a few turns shorter.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, we are just about out of time, so I'm going to ask, what are you guys playing right now? What decks are at the front of your giant box of decks?
I just finished making, I think, my greatest commander deck ever.
Oh,
And-
boy.
And I say it with both.
That is
That's a bold.
I hate
Yeah.
being
Bold strategy,
fistful of
Cotton.
salt, but
Yeah.
also like the number. Like if you're a data person, numbers don't lie. So I made Slimefoot.
Okay.
And Slimefoot has outperformed any commander deck I've made since I've made this weird, tricky Primal Surge, all permanents combo weird deck that I accidentally stumbled into a couple years ago. So it sits back and it flies under the radar, and it always looks like it's in second or third or even fourth place. And then suddenly I have 20 Saprolings that when they die, everyone gets three Drain Life triggers on the stack from 8 different sources, and I'm literally putting out 60 or 80 points of life damage,
Wow.
combined across multiple players. But it just, I've won in mid-combat, and I think our producer remembers that. Like just blocking, and then all of a sudden, just
He's
literally,
not.
they're
Sorry,
just,
John.
they're
He's
just
not.
dead.
like, wait,
Yeah.
wait, I'm dead.
So it's
yeah.
it's just this weird deck where I don't run any of the classic tutor effects, like Vampiric Tutor is not in there, Demonic Tutor is not in there. Like I can tutor for some basic lands. That's it. It just does raw card draw and makes Saprolings, and it's like if you don't tend the garden, it just will get you. And I really like that deck. I'm wrapping up Bear Force 1, the Iuli Bear deck. I need to actually finish that for this weekend. So that's kind of my project tonight. But yeah, that's kind of what's on my radar.
Okay.
I'm playing currently Queen Marchesa, Long May She
Rain.
That has it's basically I want to be the monarch, and then I want to stop you from being the monarch. So it's got some sort of you did this to yourself elements because it's got white and red, and attacking attacking into me could be deadly if you do too much of it. So that's generally a fun kind of thing. I have a very dirtly Muldrotha deck, and I mean really dirtly. There's no infant combos or anything like that. I mean, it does have river kelpie because
you have to.
river kelpie.
Yeah.
And and then I think my most fun recent one is a Yarok energy deck
Wow. Okay.
that Gavin Verhey played. He took down to LA when he was down last time.
Yeah.
And played with Josh and Jimmy. And he said it was a blast to play. And there were like dice he tweeted the pictures, like there were dice everywhere. It was like, you guess which one's my life total and which one's my energy count. And I have all 3 of those decks here this weekend. So
Nice.
Good stuff.
Steve?
This weekend I'll be at CommandFest on Saturday afternoon, so if anybody wants to come say hi. I'm going to be bringing 2 decks. I'm going to be bringing Golos Maze's End, because I love me some Maze's End. I love me some Maze's End. It's one of the only times I've ever won against Blake. And I'll be bringing Ishkana Graph Widow, which is Spider Tribal.
Nice.
And the winning through attacking is difficult. Winning through Ishkana's activated ability is not. So
Yeah.
The idea is to make a lot of spiders and cause my opponents to actually have arachnophobia.
Brian David Marshall will love your deck.
Yes, he will. I've got three new decks that I've actually put together and not played. The Rasputin deck, the Rasputin Dreamweaver, all old borders deck, and then I've got a Corvold Brawl Mander deck, which is I've got a Corvold Brawl deck, and then I've got the additional 40 cards to make it a commander deck.
Nice, very cool.
So I'm gonna be trying both halves of that deck out this weekend, and then the other deck I built that I didn't even realize I had built until I was going through the pile of cards that I'd started to put together, and I just noticed it added up to 100, and I was good. Is a King Kenrith cycling deck. And it started because I happened upon a Fluctuator in my collection, and I was like, I like this card. This card is sweet. There's been more cycling cards since then. Let's see what we can do. And so I have no idea how it plays. It looks nothing, if you're familiar with Rashad's cycling deck, it looks nothing like that.
Thank God.
Yeah, it's not that Cascade nonsense. But yeah, those are the three. Plus, I'm going to be bringing my all-foil Azami deck, which got an upgrade in Gadwick, and my Enchantress deck and that sort of stuff this weekend.
All foil decks, who does that?
I just have that one. I enjoy my one.
I feel attacked right now.
So that is all the time we have. Thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, Adam, for joining us this week. Thank you for tuning in. Next week, we've got a really cool show. So Steve is going to be at Richmond for Mythic Championship 6. Mm-hmm. He's going to be there, and we are going to talk to him live via satellite-ish? Via his phone.
Via our satellite phones. Our phones that connect to satellites.
We're going to hope this works. So he's going to be talking to players during registration, showing people around. So tune in to watch me talk to Steve about Mythic Championship 6. And then, of course, obviously that means Mythic Championship 6 starts next week. Not this weekend, the following weekend. And it'll go Friday, Saturday, Sunday here on twitch.tv/magic. And we have a short promo coming up just about that. So thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Happy Halloween.